Hey, She Ace That listeners, find us on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. Every subscribe, like, and follow goes a long way, and I can't thank you all enough for your support. And with that, let's get into today's episode. Hey everybody, welcome back to She Said. It's your host Alexandra, and today's episode is one I've been looking forward to for a while now. We talk a lot on this podcast about what it means to be an athlete, what it means to be a coach, what the recruiting process looks like, the mental game. But today we're going behind the scenes of something most families interact with every single season, but rarely get to understand from the inside, and that's running a volleyball club. So my guests today are Alan Patterson and Rob Conley from Dynamite Volleyball Club out of South Lyon, Michigan. Al founded Dynamite. What started as a smaller local option for South Lyon families has grown into a competitive club with national, premier, and local level teams. Rob came on board as an assistant director and handles everything from tournament operations to team travel to college recruiting. And what I really appreciate about these two is that even though their club has grown so much, their core values have not changed. Their motto is write your own story, and they genuinely mean it. They emphasize encouragement over criticism. They have a zero tolerance policy for bullying and drama, and they're all about making sure that every athlete has a fun, positive, and competitive experience. And I also have to give one last personal shout out here. Dynamite has been incredibly supportive of She Ace That and has welcomed me into their community with open arms. So this partnership means the world to me, and getting to sit down with people who built this special club from the ground up is an honor. So whether you're a volleyball parent trying to understand what goes on behind the scenes, an athlete who's curious about what your club directors are actually dealing with day to day, or someone who's ever dreamed about starting a club of their own, this one's for you. So with that, Al and Rob, welcome to She Ace.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for being here. So let's go back. Al, can you tell us what the moment was when you decided that you were going to start your own volleyball club?
Yes, I can go back to 2014, but it wouldn't be the moment I decided to start a volleyball club. It was never really the intention to start a club. I coached. I grew up playing all sports, including volleyball, and I coached my daughter through our local rec in the South Lyon area and playing volleyball. And once she aged out of that, I thought it was time. She wanted to continue, and so I thought it was time for the big club experience. And we did a year of that. Didn't have the best experience, and it was my wife who said, hey, you've always wanted to coach the kids. Why don't you start your own team? And so, for my daughter, I did that, and I researched how to I figured out how to be AAU certified and get the club going and get it out into the circuit. And by the next season, we were in early 2015, we were competing in one-day AAU events in this area. Like I say, I really never intended it to go further than that, but it just quickly gained popularity and steam. And, within a year, I had two teams, and then it just kept going from there. So it really wasn't the intention of starting a club, but really just to have a good positive experience with my daughter and some other local South Lyon girls.
What does it take to be AAU certified? Why do people need to worry about that?
Well, it's to be able to compete within the circuit. So if you want to, join even the local, like we have local AAU tournaments that Rob hosts, and he'll talk to that later. But if you want to do even the 2-day events in the area that all of our clubs or all of our teams go to, you have to be part of the AAU. Not only does it provide insurance for us and insures us for our athletes while they're at practice, while they're at events, but it also insures our home tournaments that Rob runs for us. So it's important to be part of that group to be able to access that club schedule and be insured and ensure a positive experience. They also require background checks for directors, for all of my coaches, to make sure that our kids are competing and having fun in a safe environment.
Rob, how did you come into the Dynamite picture?
So it would have been 2 years, right? After Al started the club. It's been going into the 2016 season. I was trying to think about it, maybe 2017 season. So it'd been 2016. I would have been part of the third team that Al had started. And the second team that joined, they kind of grew, I guess, in size and had 9 girls that were not going to be part of that second team. And they were looking to add a third team. So my wife played volleyball, both high school and college. So they actually asked her if she wanted to coach our middle daughter, plus the other 9 girls that were looking to be on a team. So my wife asked me if I wanted to help, and as she said, I kind of bullied my way into being the head coach. So I felt, I was also same kind of path that Al took, right? We did the rec volleyball with our daughters. I have 3 daughters that have played now for Dynamite volleyball. So we did rec together. And then once I got into club volleyball, the passion for this sport kind of took over. And ever since then, I either was coaching or helping out run the club, and how it got started.
It's great when you can have that foundation for both of you. You work well together, you find a balance, and then once you build that trust as well, you rely on it for a foundation of a club. Your motto is write your own story. Where did that come from? And what does it mean to you when you see your athletes living that out?
That one I came up with a year or two ago, and it really just means just that we want athletes to come in and, their story begins and ends with them. So we have kids that come in and just want to play and have fun, and kids that want to play, teens and even 18s at times, that don't have the desire to play college, but they're going to bring with them when they leave a positive experience from Dynamite, with not only the friends that they made, the experiences that they had, the coaches that they had connections with, but then you have the players that are really serious and they do want to compete at the next level. And that's where then we help them with recruiting and then help them with the exposure and tell them the things that they need to do to kind of make that happen. And we've got a lot of kids that have committed. So the write your own story really is just that simple, which is, it's your story, write it. We're going to be there to help facilitate it. We're kind of like the blank pages, and you're going to put the ink on the paper as the player and then write that story. And hopefully it's something. We have so many girls now that start when they're 12s and end when they're 17. So they go their whole, college club experience with Dynamite and end up with a really great story.
Do you have a lot of girls that play just club versus high school and vice versa? Or do you not really see that often?
Not often. I think the majority of our players play high school and club. They're pretty serious players. The unfortunate few that don't play high school generally is because of a negative experience at high school. I had a player last year that had that. That was her experience, is that she was playing. She made my 17-1s team, but she had a negative experience at high school and with the coaching and the environment. And so she didn't play, but the vast majority do. And it's sad. And that's, and I think we'll get into that more when we talk about coaching and things, but it's so important to have somebody not only knowledgeable, but that's there to help, understand these girls are in a time of their lives when there's a lot of things going on and there's a lot of negative influences out there, but this should always be a positive environment because the whole point of volleyball is to have fun.
I completely agree. And that's, something about your guys' club too that makes it different and stand out is you guys really care. You care about, your coaches, you care about your individual athletes. And when it comes to not tolerating bullying, drama, or anything that takes away from the fun, positive experience that you're explaining, how do you guys enforce that, in practice, especially with kids going through things both on the court and off the court? And how do you navigate those tougher conversations to make sure that everybody has that safe place?
Well, I'll start and I'll kind of let Rob kind of take over if he has anything to add to it. But I think that one of the things that I learned early in my daily job, my career, is that if you don't tell people their expectations, then they don't know what they are, and it's hard for them to live up to them. So right at the start of every season, we have expectations. And I generally give a talk to our whole club, not only before tryouts, but also the first day of practice to kind of go over those expectations, which are just what you just said: no drama, no bullying. Whether or not you like someone personally, once you're on the court, that's your family. And we expect you to treat everyone with respect, not only the teammates, but their coaches, parents, officials, and represent our club in a positive way. If there are differences or problems, they're expected to talk to their coaches about it. And if they can't find resolution there, then we encourage them to talk to myself or Rob to kind of step in and help out. And we have that probably once or twice a year. We still end up with somebody and so a little bit of drama on a team because we do have 170 players. There's going to be some things going on. But I think, like I said, I think it starts also with strong coaching. When we have seen problems with other clubs and things, it is generally, I hate to say, for lack of a better word, weak coaching, people that are not knowledgeable. Sometimes they're too young and inexperienced, and they end up adding to the drama a little bit. So when you have, like our club, we will talk about it, it's really quality over quantity. We had just about 500 kids come to tryouts last year. We took 170. So, that means we let 330 girls go. So we could have had more teams and we could have shared courts and we could have done a lot to really just increase revenue, but we really wanted to have a quality environment and over the quantity of girls, which we see at so many little bigger clubs. And so by being able to keep it smaller, I hire every single coach and we have them come in and we go through training with them and things that we can talk about more. But the bottom line is that I think having the strong coaching, the expectations, and then always being present between Rob and I really keeps that to a minimum.
Well, I think he covered a lot of it, but I think just kind of add to what he was talking about, just staying somewhat small, that allows both Al and I to be present in at most of the practices or at tournaments. So if something does come up, they know who to reach out to, right? And we've had in the past, as Al said, issues on teams, but we have worked with addressing them, and a lot of times they're fixed, and the team moves on from there. But yeah, you always don't. When you have 170, there's always you might get one or two, right? It's just a lot of athletes, but it's just part of what they're learning what to do. It's not just about volleyball with us, right? It's a lot of life skills. So you're going to be at work, and there's going to be people you're not going to like, and you have to learn how to work with them through your day, and how do you have a positive experience, not just in volleyball, but just in life as well. So.
How do you explain that to teenagers? Let's say you're navigating a conflict. What are your guys' tips or tricks on potential younger coaches out there that maybe have the first team right now and they're experiencing anything related to a conflict or unnecessary drama? Do you have tangible advice to help them work through that?
Yeah, I think that the first part is really just setting those expectations immediately at practice. I mean, the first time you get together, and that's what I do. I have a printed out sheet, and it is like, hey, there is no bullying, there is no drama, you are expected to be here at this time. You are expected to be ready. You're expected everyone shag when I'm talking. You're listening. Younger coaches especially, you just can't be their friends. I mean, you can be friendly. I mean, I I'm my team and I joke a lot, we laugh, and we have a lot of fun, but they understand that when it's time to work, when I say something that they listen. So I think that my advice would just be to set those expectations immediately and hold them. And then, like you say, when you're dealing with the athlete, the best way is just to be direct, not in a mean way, but you have to be direct and let them know what the issue is. And if they have a bad attitude, that, hey, that's if you're going to have a bad attitude, then you're going to be sitting and missing playing time, even if you're my best player, because if you allow that toxic athlete on the court, it will bring the whole team down.
I fully agree. Is there an age group that you guys have coached that has been most rewarding for you?
I know Rob has an example.
Well, I mean, I'll tell you, my favorite are my littles. I love the younger kids, the 10 to 12 age group. And prior to volleyball, in a past life, I was a assistant golf coach, um, and taught golf, and that was always my favorite because they, try to serve the ball over net over and over and over again. That first time they get it over, their eyes are just so big and they're so happy. But I mean, I've been very fortunate to coach from the littles all the way up to 17, 18s, I think, right, Al? Was
That's
the
right.
one that we coached together, right? So I've seen all different age groups. Been very fortunate to have great athletes and great parents that have been part of that as well. But I love my littles, especially even the ones that, like, kind of when I first started, like the little, clinics, and that a lot of them are still with our club, right? So they're like my OGs, as I call them, because they're the first ones that were taking my clinics for the 10 to 12 age groups.
Mhm.
That'd be mine. Yeah.
Yeah, I would just say every year is special, and it's funny. Each year, I think, oh boy, this is my favorite team I've had, and then the next year, I have another favorite team. But probably the most, I mean, rewarding was the years with my daughter, because that was the whole point of the club. And even though that was our beginnings, and so we weren't, you know, competing at the level our teams are now, it was definitely the most rewarding to be able to spend that time with her. And what's nice is that she is now she's 25 now. Now she's one of our coaches. As a matter of fact, she's our 12 Adidas coach, and she's having probably the most successful season of any coach that we've had right now. So she's
Yeah.
something like what, 25-1, Rob, or 26-1.
They've
Yeah.
only
Wow.
loss they had was in the finals, so they've
Yeah.
won 3 and finished second in their other tournaments. So, yeah,
Right.
they're off to a very, very good start. So
Yeah.
Hopefully my daughters and my wife do not listen to this podcast because you just one up me for me not saying that all of the years I coached them I was special, which it was, right? But
Yeah. And while your guys' input on this, I was just talking to somebody the other day about helping, like 10 to 12 U teams. They're still younger, right? They're still figuring out coordination, and the net's super high compared to what they can actually tangibly do. Sometimes it just turns into like a serving streak versus like actually any rallies. I think they do this in Canada where they lower the net to like the tallest girl on the team so that they're still able to snap their wrist and practice. And obviously, not all nets will go that low, but I just wonder your thoughts if that's something you guys have ever thought of doing, or like if you adjust in any way to get them just a little bit more understanding of being able to be over the ball.
I have, yeah. You want to go, Al? Or you want me?
Go ahead. That's your age
Yeah.
group.
Yeah, so I've actually never have, and that's actually a great idea, especially in the clinics that I run,
Yeah.
right? And I'll put them up on boxes, and we keep it at 7 feet, so most of them can work on that. And if you talk to any of the ones that have taken most of my clinics, I have all these little terms for them, right? And way back when our first time having a 11U team, I think we talked about this, Alexander. My youngest daughter, we were at the AAU Grand Prix, and on Fridays they had the Itsy Bitsy Spiker tournament, and so my wife's like, we got to have 11 team so they can play in that. And Al was like, okay, we can figure it out. We wanted to call them, I think, what were we going to call them? The Firecrackers, not
Yeah.
Dynamite, something like that, right? And so, right, you can ask them, they're seniors now, right? I think, yeah, they're all seniors, talking about like when you snap your wrist. And my wife came up with it. I've always used this, like show your pretty nails, right, to finish through the ball. You can ask them; they'll still talk about that. So, but that lower than that, that's a great thing. But just even for us in our season, for our 10 to 12, our local team, as well as our 12U teams, we strive to teach them the game of volleyball. And one of our coaches that's been with us for a while, Sabrina, played at Grand Valley, was All-American there in their Hall of Fame. She even brought it up to us, and it was a while ago, and she talked about don't ever underestimate them. So when we start our seasons, we always tell our 12s coaches, teach them the game. If they're learning how to set up, right, pass it, set it, 3 contacts, and the other team is just, first ball coming back over, and we lose because of that, it's not a loss because they're learning how to play, right?
Right.
That's what we're trying to teach them. And so it's not all about wins and losses. But back to, I guess, your question. No, and I think I've seen that before, but I think that's a great way to get them to learn, right, the footwork and see that ball go over and with the proper technique. So I'm gonna have to use that.
Um, we try to, when we place our coaches, we're trying to place them where we feel like they're going to do the most good. So you might not have the most strategic coach. Like if, for example, I'm coaching 17s, and a lot of that game is strategy and matchups and things
Yeah.
like that. But the coach at 12s and 13s, we want those coaches. Those are the coaches that are good about teaching the basics. They can teach passing, serving, hitting, footwork, all of those basics, because it is so important to build that foundation just like a house before you build the rest of it on top of it. So we don't want a coach coaching the 12s or their 11s and 12s that is like focused more on, hey, let's run a fast tempo. That's going to be for older age groups. We really need them teaching those basics. So again, I think that's part of the strength of what we've found is that we have those coaches. And that's why Rob, so when I run some clinics, I'll do the middle and high school clinics, and Rob runs the littles because he is just all about those basics.
And it's finding what you're passionate about as a coach. When you are able to communicate that, then your coaching experience is so much better too. And I think it's okay to have, different preferences or like expertise in general. I do want to pivot to just the creation of a club topic. And so if somebody came to you tomorrow and said, hey, I want to start a volleyball club, do you have like a first thing you would tell them? Any things that you need to get checked off right away? Like, what is your perception on that question?
I think Rob and I talked about this earlier. We'd say, don't do it.
It's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot of work. I mean,
It's a lot.
it really is. I mean, Al and I joked about, because we knew we were having this with you today, that we should start our own podcast, because he calls me on his way to work every day. and that's our like check-in about what's going on. Like
Mhm.
we have teams going to tournaments, we got MEQ this weekend. We have teams going to Ohio, so need to get the information out to the parents. Just it's an everyday thing, and it's especially the small clubs. This is just a side thing, right? We have full-time jobs, right? Which is, a lot of my day. And, so most times the communications are going out at night and trying to find time to make sure that they get what they need. But yeah, I'll let Al, because Al's the one that started this. I'm just riding his coattails as being a
Uh,
part of this. So he
yeah,
can kind of give the startups, but we'll go from
it is.
there.
It's So we talked about kind of the beginnings, but what I didn't really go into in detail is the fact that I didn't try to start the business. So it was really just to have a positive experience with my daughter. It was to create a local option for the girls in the area for a couple years, and it just ended up evolving and growing very slowly and organically. One team one year, two the next year, four the next year, and it was out of schools. I was renting space through the rec. So completely nonprofit. As a matter of fact, losing money most years for the first, several years. And until the point where my daughter aged out of it. And then by that point, I think we were up to maybe 6 or 7 teams. That's when, my wife said, okay, I'm going to give it up now. And I said, it's kind of turning into something kind of cool. So I stayed with it. And eventually we ended up in the facility we're at now. So we were lucky to get it. It's an actual facility. We're not out of schools. We have a 4-court facility, Action Sports in South Lyon. And it's really worked out well for us. But a lot of the clubs that, if you are in a school or in a church or things, you're just so reliant on their schedule. And that's what we found, is that we couldn't create a very competitive club if we couldn't practice because they were having a play or something was happening in the gym that always was more important than what we were doing. So, um, yeah, it is, I guess. So the only advice would be, if you are planning on starting it, it's going to be a lot of years of not making any money and probably losing a lot of money. So you better just really be doing it for the love of the sport, and not just trying to make a quick buck.
I fully agree. It's different too. Like, and Rob, you're funny by saying you're riding the coattails, but I see how hard you work at, hosting tournaments too. And so even on that side, Rob, can you explain what goes into hosting a tournament and like taking us behind the scenes of even prepping for a single day tournament versus the larger ones, obviously, that you travel to?
Yeah, so starting from the beginning, July, August, when they start putting out the 2-day tournament dates, I really work on trying to stay away from all of that for multiple reasons. One being, we want to make sure that we can fill our tournaments, so the clubs that come to our tournaments are getting the best experience possible and the best competition possible. Yeah, so I work on those, working around those weekends for what tournaments are going on and staying away from those. Also making sure, if needed, if I can't be there, that Al's also around if I can't host it. But then from there, right, we have to work with Sharon at the MJVBA, make sure that she gets our tournaments posted, make sure that the space is reserved with Action Sports where we're out of, getting information out to all the clubs that are around to know our tournament dates, information out to them once we get close to the tournament, getting everything set up the night before. Nets and tables, the teams have the tables, and then once they come, just making sure that everything goes smoothly. Everything keeps on time, because I know, especially for the 1 days, right? It's a long day. They're doing both pool and brackets all in 1 day, whereas the 2-day tournaments is, they're doing pool 1 day, brackets the next. So it's a long day for the parents as well as the kids to be at that gym. So I know everybody is happy once it is done and they're out of there. But yeah, I just want to make sure that it's the best experience that we can have, because then they come back the following year. We have,
Mhm.
as Al probably could say, we have clubs. It's every single year they're always at our tournaments, and I think it's just because we try to put out the best product possible.
No, that's helpful. And from the financial topic you were talking about at a high level, what are the biggest expense things that you are inputting into the club? What are those larger expenses that you have to be prepared for?
So we begin, and like Rob said, so the budgeting process each season begins basically
Yeah.
when the 2026 season began. I began budgeting for 2027 and looking at the costs of things, increases. Biggest costs are yes, lease. The lease obviously is one of our biggest costs. Salaries for our coaches, and tournament entry are probably the three biggest things. But there's so much beyond that. But there's so much to plan and budget for us. But salaries is big for us because we're a smaller club in the area. But my goal is to try to pay our coaches better than other clubs in the area because I want to retain those good coaches. A lot of coaches leave, go to different clubs and things. Maybe they don't feel supported. Maybe they don't feel like they're making enough. But our goal between Rob and I is we give them 100% support. They're always able to contact us. We'll fill in if they can't make it. But again, we're also paying them a wage that, as we pay attention to other clubs in the area, that we feel is better than the other clubs, and we take care of them better. So, yeah, those would probably be our biggest three financial, costs. We're still able to balance all of our budget and still and I guess offer teams with comparable schedules as to other clubs in the area that are like our big teams, at a lower cost option for the parents in the area.
Absolutely. And just from being a previous coach, it goes a long way when you feel like you're, being supported and taken care of in multiple ways. And you guys do a great job. How do you find and hire good coaches? Like if somebody's looking for a new coach, like what do you look for? How do you build a staff that's aligned with the club's values? There's
Yeah,
a
that's
lot
it.
to it.
It's a great question. And it's, in the past, it was really just, when we started, obviously it was just asking, asking Rob and Amy, his wife, hey, if we don't have other coaches, we can't field a team. But it's gotten to the point now where a lot of it is by referral from our current coaches. Some is from seeing coaches at tournaments and just kind of like making good connections with them. And eventually they decide, hey, like maybe this is a better place to be. But a lot of it is referral. And then when we have a process where we bring them in and we can, we'll set up a clinic with kids and kind of give them a practice plan, go over it with the new coach and watch them run a plan. This past season, Rob and I were in the gym probably several times with new coaches. And, within 10 minutes into the plan, we knew, yes, we're hiring, or no, we're not hiring, because it's more than just a warm body to fill that spot. We are looking for a qualified coach, whether it is our lowest, 12s region or premier team, which is our, just stays in the area, or if it's my 17 ones, I want the coaching to be solid and competent at both levels. So that's our process. And once we figure it out, then then we hire them, and we're, other than, some of our coaches deciding to have families or moving out of the area, we really don't lose anyone.
Yeah, now
Yeah.
I would add to that, Al. I think we've also had several coaches, Sam being one,
Mhm.
that were local high school players that played high level club at the bigger clubs, right? And at
Mhm.
the time, we were just not um, big. We were just going to the 1-day tournaments. We didn't have national teams, and so we've now had several girls that have now went and played college volleyball come back to the area and heard, about how we have grown, and they've asked to be part of like our summer camps if they could do lessons. And so that also allows us to see them with, the kids, how they interact, what's their voice on the court. And that has turned into some coaching opportunities as well. Al he was very fortunate to have a assistant coach a couple years ago, Emily Kalinowski, who was a setter at Lake Superior State. I think she's still the assist leader at South Lyon, and played high level club, come back, and same thing. That was her reason that she wanted to come back and coach for us, because she was part of a big club and she wanted to come coach with us because she saw, how much it's grown and what Al has done.
Especially nice to stay local. It's all word of mouth too, and connections. A coach has a great experience at your club. They want to stay, and then they'll probably tell somebody else who's interested or looking to leave another place. So I do think it's really like you guys are the foundation, but it's also the coaches that you are keeping and retaining for reasons that keeps a club solid across the board. So on the recruiting side, what do you do for recruiting? Did you always offer recruiting support, or was that something that you added kind of as the club continued to grow?
Go ahead,
You
Rob.
want me to take? So we started the recruiting, like helping with recruiting. Was it year of COVID? Oh, I'm thinking of Maddie, right? That was our first,
Yes.
our first
19
recruit.
2020.
Yeah, and I remember her coming into her club, and she had a lot of talent. I asked her if she had any interest in playing in college, and that was the start of it, and sh at the time, she wasn't even thinking about going to college because they didn't know if they could afford it. Played for us and actually was, at the time, wasn't doing a lot to help, but it was the kind of start, and she ended up going to play at Henry Ford, and it was all paid for, so had a great experience doing that, and so that kind of is what started it, and from there, I started building my portfolio, again, whatever you'd call it, like, just meeting college coaches, right? We had a local coach that was both with club but also with Madonna. So I'd pick her brain. We started hosting like a local, and not really, like it's a national, but like a recruiting combine or like one of those unsigned showcases at Action Sports. So Action Sports would host that, and so I would go to it to meet the coaches, so I could start asking them questions about recruiting. And then eventually we developed like a recruiting guide. And so I would, over probably now, what, Al, the last 3 or 4 years, 4 years now, maybe
Mhm.
more, 5. Yeah. So I guess 5. COVID was 2020. It's grown. We would hold like a recruiting seminar. Would have the college coach come in and talk about recruiting. And then once I got more comfortable with it, because when I played golf in college and recruiting back then was nothing like it is now. There was no social
Yeah.
media, right? And so now I have like a recruiting guide. I sit down with the parents and the player for the first meeting. Just kind of go through like kind of steps of being recruited. And depending on where they are in the process. Like we have a player that's on our 18s team, who is an internet. She's from
Oh,
in Europe.
she's
Um,
overseas, yeah.
yeah, overseas. Our draw blank on the country she's from, and she just all of a sudden said, "Hey, I want to play college volleyball." So it was a very fast process, and she has been contacted by probably 30 colleges now. It helps if she's 6'2" as well. But yeah, but for the most part, sit down, talk about the recruiting process, what they need to do. We use Field Level as one of our recruiting tools, which I think, especially for a smaller club, it's a great resource because the college coaches post their recruiting needs. So that allows me then to
Mm.
put recommendations out to those college coaches on girls that are looking to be recruited. We use Huddle for both stats as well as video and for recruiting. So the girls can activate that they're wanting to be recruited, because I know college coaches use Huddle as well to start doing searches for athletes. And then after that first meeting, then I continue to do follow-ups and check-ins with them to see how it's going. Have they contacted coaches? A lot of it is on the athlete to reach out to the colleges, reach out to the coaches, but making sure that if they're struggling with anything, what help do they need? Is there a certain college that they're interested in that they haven't heard from a college coach yet? See if I've connected with them yet, and maybe reach out to them. Make sure they're sending schedules out to their coaches, using the video from Huddle to create their highlight films. Huddle is a great tool because you can take all the little snippets from their different tournaments and make a nice recruiting video. Whereas probably back when you did it, right, you may have had to like make your own video and cut it and do all of that. So
Yeah, we barely had like even I don't know, I feel like recruiting was just not even a conversation. Like nobody was really looking out for us. It was either the college coach comes to find you or you don't hear. And I didn't realize the power I could have had when
yeah,
going through that process,
right.
regardless of the level.
Right. Yeah. And, with social media, I think that's really helped the smaller schools, right? Obviously, the
Yeah,
Nebraskas, the Louisvilles, Pitt, those schools have, 100 coaches that are going all over the country to do recruiting. And they know exactly who are the top 100 athletes in the country, right? But for the girls coming out of like a smaller program like ours, they need to utilize all the tools possible. So social media, I make sure that they have their own volleyball, social media page. So
for
on Insta,
sure.
and reach and follow every single school and coach that they can. And it's amazing that some of the free resources that they can use will be how they actually connect with the coaches. It may not be that they saw you at a tournament or whatever. It's because you were able to get in front of them at the right time when they're checking their email, and they're going to be at the tournament that you're going to be in. They stop by your court, right? And so, or they just see your video on on field level, and they reach out and then they have that conversation. So it has evolved from our first player that went and played to where now every year we have girls that are going to play somewhere. So we work hard to make sure that we keep us, an 18s team, because that helps with their recruiting process as well. I think our 18s currently, there's 5 of the 10 that are looking to play in college, and 3 of them have either committed or about to commit.
Like 4 have committed right now, and the one is the one you were talking about, so that would be number 5.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
Uh,
I know that we have one that is switching schools, and so I don't know if she is actually committed yet. I'm not going to put where she potentially might be going, but I'm excited for
that's awesome.
that
Yeah.
player. Yeah. So a
And like
fun
Rob,
part,
yeah,
and then and the last thing I was gonna say, this most recently, my youngest daughter she's a golfer, and she's gonna go play at Saginaw Valley. So as a parent, I got to see the other side of it and experience the recruiting part. I was fortunate, I have a little background in it, but this to be a part of what the players and parents go through, I was able to kind of live it with her, and it's very stressful. Stressful just seeing kind of their emotions as they go through and where they want to play, and if they don't hear back from certain schools, or a
Your
school that they
friends.
like, declines it because either they're full or they're looking for some other positions that they may have a need, and so forth. So yeah, fun process.
It's good that you have the help. If you don't really know where to start when you're going through it the first time, and it's always okay to ask for help. From the stats side, stats are important, video is important. Obviously, how you're treating your teammates and coaches and when you're being observed is important. So, like off the court stuff as well. But, like, how hard do you guys push stats? How well do you try to maintain that accountability with the players that are maybe on the bench taking the stats?
I think, like Rob said, with Huddle has been fantastic. So Huddle,
Yeah.
rather than taking those hand stats, because I do think that you missed a lot and they're not very accurate. Being able to use Huddle now, and especially the newer version now that has AI, it's a little bit more challenging, but you're able to go back and at least check and correct the errors that happen within it. I personally, and I probably a lot of coaches, after each tournament, I take those stats, and we have team goals, right? We want to hit at least 200 as a team. We want to pass. Our goal is to pass a 2, right? So if we're not meeting our goals, then we utilize Huddle actually to create a practice plan. I'll look where were we weak? Like is there a particular rotation that we're weak, or was our serve receive off? So we'll hit those areas, and I design the plan around those areas. And so it's really been a super useful tool for us, and we actually provide that to all of our teams. So all the way down to our 12s, they can use Huddle for you know to review and to look at stats and things like that. But the stats are really, I think, once we get into our high school ages, where our coaching staff is really using those and holding people accountable, and allows you then to like make those coaching decisions to say, hey, I've got 3 outside hitters, and one of them hit, a .067, and the other 2 were hitting, 150 to 200. Well, now okay, well, this is what you need to work on. And so when that player or parent comes to you and asks how come they're not playing as much, you have concrete stats of why, and obviously you're going to work with them. You're going to try to continue to make them improve. That might be why they didn't play that much that tournament, because they weren't producing as much.
That's a good thing too, as a coaching advice, is like have stats to back up any questioning on your decisions too. It's just another tool to add to your toolbox.
Exactly. And, and it really does. And when I say that too, it's, I don't want people to think that we simply, we bench people because of bad stats. I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And so, I tell all the players, hey,
Hmm.
we're going to work hard on these things. And the next tournament, if
Yep.
you're a player, you're in, so we're just always, it's always our goal is like, feed our middles, spread the love, and then go with hot hands. It really is like just that
Yeah.
simple. So how we run our offense.
I appreciate stats because it takes the emotional side out of the sport, right? Like you can have the best stats in a game, but felt like you played the worst ever. Like it just kind of separates those two, so you can think logically from like a mathematics standpoint, what do I have to work on, and then think, okay, why did I feel that way then while playing? Like, did I feel like I had a great game? Did I not feel as confident? And then you can also tap into the mental side as well, which I think is helpful.
That's huge. As a past player yourself, and my team, I'm coaching 17s. It is, and they know it, and it is such a mental game. You can be the most talented player out there, but probably the most difficult part of my job coaching and all of our coaches is really just keeping players out of their heads and keeping them in the game and making them understand that they're going to fail an awful lot, and that's okay. And then we can throw the stats of like the big top 10, the teams in volleyball, Nebraska and Pitt and all. It is the best players out there are hitting 300, 400. But that's why I have to explain to my players. That means that 6 times they didn't get it, and 4 times they did if they're hitting 400. So the best players out there are making a lot of mistakes. So if we can keep our players out of their heads and always looking forward, sometimes in a timeout, I might just be saying, "Hey, listen, can we change what happened 5 seconds ago?" And they say, "Nope." I'm like, "Okay, then don't worry about it. All we can look at is forward, right? So we don't care what happened 5 seconds ago. Let's just move on. We got to keep playing hard."
Like group. Let's say somebody wants to join a club and they're thinking about the different levels to join. So, for example, you guys have like the national Adidas, Premier, and local. How do you help families figure out which level is the right fit for their athlete? How do you kind of handle the conversations when maybe a kid isn't placed where the family expected? And any advice in that realm for families navigating that upcoming tryouts this year?
Yeah, and we actually, I try to explain it on our website too. But when
Mhm.
people ask quickly, that we tell them not to worry too much about it. Sign up for tryouts at the highest level that you're comfortable with. So if you are okay with travel and expensive travel, because when it comes to travel volleyball, most of the expense isn't the registration fee; it's the traveling, it's the hotels, it's the plane to nationals in Florida, it's the eating out, it's all of those things.
Yeah.
If they are financially able to absorb that, then sign up for nationals. But we tell them not to put too much stress into that because we're going to actually evaluate at tryouts and give them an offer where we think that where they most likely fit. So even if they sign up for our premier team, which is our state level, we may offer them national. And when it comes to like explaining to them why a player may not make the team that they want, we have really structured the tryout process, and we actually explain at tryouts and before and during and after the process, how they're evaluated. Everyone gets eyes on. It's not 30 or 40 kids on a court not getting seen. It is like every kid gets seen at every skill and evaluated every skill, and it's broken down really well. So a lot of compliments on our tryout process over the years, and generally don't have those questions afterwards because they understand the process.
That makes sense. Thank you for that. And last question for both of you. What has been the proudest moment for each of you during this time tackling Dynamite Volleyball Club, and what has been the hardest?
I would say I think Rob would agree with the hardest was probably
Yeah,
COVID year.
COVID. Yeah,
Yeah.
I was gonna
Yeah.
say that. Yeah.
That was just challenging in many ways. We were lucky in that I had just signed a long-term lease with an actual facility. We weren't in school, so we saw a lot of clubs go under that year and the year after, just because they were reliant on schools, community centers, and places where the rules just locked them out of there for way too long. And but the difficult, we got back in the gym and we just had to navigate the rules regarding getting people together again. So that was difficult, and then obviously the complaints from different people who wanted masking done as more stringent, things like that. So that was probably the most difficult. My personal proudest, there's not really one moment. I guess I would just say I'm proud of where it's come, what it's become. Because like I said, and I'll just say one more time, is I didn't intend to build a club, but it just happened, and I think that I was able to hire great people, including Rob, and you know to help it be successful. And I'm just proud of the club and where we've been, and I'm looking forward to where we go.
Yeah, I definitely agree on the COVID year, but more of just, right, we lost 3 months of a volleyball season, and most of the costs for volleyball are up front, right? We're paying tournaments, we're paying, jersey, everything that we're buying up front, all those costs are gone. And just try even, Al working to try to get some of those costs back from the tournaments to help with whatever we could give back to those families. But, a lot of those tournaments, they had to pay for the space and they didn't get refunded, right? So they weren't able to refund us.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was probably of that COVID was that I would say was the tough part, right? Is the conversations with families, why, where's our money? Where did
Yeah.
it go? And that was tough, right? Most rewarding, there's probably I probably have a ton, but just I mean the big one is just what we have built.
Mhm.
Al does it for the right reasons.
Yeah.
So yeah. Plus, I got to throw it in. I was very fortunate to have my daughters play for. I had a couple very good seasons with my daughters where when we won states, we had a bunch of wins, and then went down to nationals and had an okay first day, but then never lost again the last 3 days and won our bracket. So yeah. Well, some of the personal things, but yeah, being a part of this club and what
Yeah.
Al has built is probably the most rewarding and most special.
Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it. Before I do a closing, anything else you want to add that we didn't touch on?
No, you did a great job. I think you covered everything.
No, it was good.
Okay, good.
It was awesome. Yeah, so excited to be a part of this. We've
Well,
luckily had chance of you coming into a couple of our tournaments, so we've had a chance to have some good conversations about a lot of different things. So yeah,
yeah.
was really cool to be a part of this. So we appreciate you reaching out to us and doing this.
Well, I appreciate you guys giving me the opportunity. It means a lot to me. Al, Rob, I cannot thank you both enough for sitting down with me today and all of your support always. What you built at Dynamite is so special. And I think anybody listening can hear the care that you put into your athletes goes so far beyond just volleyball. It's about life skills. It's about confidence. It's about writing your own story. And that's exactly what I wanted Chase that to be about. And I'm really proud to have this relationship with you guys and all that you've built. So thank you again for joining Chase that this week. Thank you, everybody, for listening in. And we will see you next Wednesday.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome.